Hello, Shrinky Dink, and welcome to your deck review. For anybody who has not been to one of these before, this is where I, Jonathan Maldown, fix your PP. We're going to look at your premise and your practicum, and I'm going to tell you what's wrong with it. We're going to talk about, does your idea work in the first place? If it doesn't, or if it does, did the particular cards you picked make it not work? And then what we can do to correct that. So let's talk about getting Wraithist, which is definitely one of the titles of all time. So the primer is, I want to play Control. Most builds are Spellslinger, but I want to play Draw, Go, Control. Some changes I've considered are putting the ramp back in to get the commander out fast, but drawing ramp instead of more interaction when he's out sucks. Another is changing the draw shell to be more Spellslingery and lower cost. In its current state, it really has trouble getting to draw go to build advantage. I either can't get the commander out in a timely manner or just stall out while countering something once a turn or whatever. This is my pet deck and has probably had 10 plus major revisions in the past 2 years, so I'm having trouble judging it anymore. I need a second opinion. The last major revision was after Trinket's video on cutting ramp from control decks for more lands released, if that explains anything. Okay, so for premise, I think the reaction to Trinket's video makes sense in the context of control decks. This is probably a pretty bad control deck, right? Just idea alone. We have a 5-mana commander, Lord of the Nazgul. I get to start making 3/3s after I stick my 5-mana commander. And then if we have 9 or more, we get to overrun. That's a decent built-in finisher, but as far as Drago control goes, that's already a pretty weak archetype in Commander, because 1-for-1ing, pretty bad deal. You have 2 other people who aren't getting 1-for-1. So most of the time, you want to be 1-for-1ing, like, the win attempt, the thing that is going to pull their whole deck together, or an insanely good value engine like Rhystic Study. And one thing I notice a lot in Bracket 3 is everything and nothing is worth counterspelling. Everything is in this weird middle range where it's good enough that you don't want them to have it, but it's not quite good enough that you really want to spend a counterspell on it. Think more annoying, like Bristly Bill. Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. And there's a million others like him where it's going to get out of control eventually, but it's definitely not out of control the turn it's getting played. And so if you're sitting there with a counterspell, the calculus gets very, very difficult very quickly, and I think most of that math just ends up with you getting murdered. The ramp thing, I think, kind of makes sense. I think if you draw a lot of ramp when you're trying to do control, you're just totally hosed. But it does present you with a problem of you're doing Drago control and you're going to tap out on turn 5. If we're hitting all our land drops, you're tapping out on turn 5, or you're tapping almost out on turn 6. And these are usually the turns in Bracket 3 where people are going for win attempts. So not only are we going to be slow out of the gate, at the pivotal moment where most people are going to be trying to win the game, we will have 0 mana to interact. So we could push to like turn 7 or 8 where we can hold up enough mana for like a big wide range of interaction. But then at that point, we're probably looking at like 3 to 4 more turns before we can get 9 Wraiths into play. Which is like turn 10 or 11 where we're trying to go for it. Like that's not unheard of, but it is really, really slow, and that's a lot of time you have to stop everybody for. If you look at other examples of control decks that can kind of hang together well, it's usually stuff like Tivit that is attempting to put a win on the board right when the big thing comes down. Or it's like Grand Arbiter Augustine, which is just this massive blanket effect that will provide value for you immediately. Lord of the Nazgul provides 0 immediate value. We are playing a 5-mana slow value engine, which is very, very rough. That will cover it for the premise. Let's see the cards you actually picked. Immediate disagreement on only 3 board wipes. We were already talking about in the premise section. 1-for-1ings, really, really rough. Having That's barely even a board wipe, dog. Don't lie. I mean, it belongs here over any other section, but in your heart, this should be tagged board wipe-ish. And then racist board wipe, kind of, it just bounces the hand. I mean, sure. I would think if you wanted to make this deck work, you need to have way more of these. Again, because of that flood of medium motherfuckers that come out. Like, I think another example in addition to Bristly Bill is like Delny. If somebody plays a Delny and they don't have anything on board that's going to convert into anything crazy, and you have like one counterspell in hand, you're insane, probably, to counter Delny. If they then, I don't play white decks, so I don't know what pops off with Delny, but I know at least it's rabbits. If they then start playing stuff that pops off with Delny, then you're gonna be like, oh fuck, I really should have gotten that Delny. And it looks like you have removal in here too, but I think that snip snap, oh I got it wrong, is gonna happen again and again and again and again and again. And I like that we have edicts for a good amount of our removal, and we have a little bit of single target removal. I think the big missing piece mechanically from this interaction section is more board wipes. 1000%. Whether you do the creature type specific board wipes like Kindred Dominance, and I realize you probably like, oh god, I don't want to do board wipes because then I blow up all my Nazgul. Yeah, and if we can't, like, we gotta get to the point where we can Nazgul reliably and then fix it from there. So what board wipes could we do that aren't gonna ruin your life? Dimir. Yeah, like Deluge is gonna fuck you. Deluge is awful for you because you're rocking at 3 toughness the whole time. There's dominance, but this is really expensive, and you said you're not playing ramp, so it's gonna be very hard for us to get there. Crux of Fate doesn't really help us because we're not playing dragons. Crippling Fear kind of works against token decks, but it's not going to do anything to the Stompy player. Toxrill's funny, but he's definitely too expensive. We don't have vampires. Woof, this is awful. Okay. So this is the big predicament we're in. Is the best thing we can do to get to Lord of the Nazgul is play a bunch of board wipes. And the worst thing we can do once Lord of the Nazgul is out, play a bunch of board wipes. So if we had access to white, this would work. If Lord of the Nazgul was Esper, then we would get all the white sweepers. I mean, Midnight Banshee is like, again, 6 mana. That doesn't really help us get to Lord of the Nazgul. I guess you could consider Gix's command. This kind of splits the difference, where we can pick the Edict effect and then we can pick the Sweeper effect if we're getting overrun by low power value creatures. But I'm not going to pretend this is not a hard problem, and I don't want to belabor it too much, but I do think the core mechanical point to consider is too much of your stuff goes 1-for-1. I also think too much of your stuff bounces for how slow your game plan is. Stuff like Chain of Vapor, stuff like Snap, Into the Floodmaw. These are very, very good control magic pieces because most control decks just have to make it one more turn and then they slam the door shut. If you're playing control in a 60 card format, you are normally sticking some like fuck ass planeswalker. Like in Pioneer, you stuck one of the Teferis or something. but it's just one more turn, and then I'm gonna slam something big, and then you are fucked. I think in standard right now it's like Jeskai Revelation. And then they have accrued so much advantage that you can't dig out from under it. In Commander, you are never reaching that point, and your commander does not slam the door shut. Your commander kind of like gently but non-offensively attempts to close the door in the face of like Jehovah's Witnesses or something. Like, you don't want to be rude. That makes it really hard to try to survive with bounce-based removal, because they just play it again the next turn, and your timeline is not fast enough for that one turn you've been spared to save you. So I think we need more stuff that gets shit gone. Or, like, it either has to get shit gone, or we got to hit a million things, because again, what's probably going to happen is we're going to be sitting there with our one counterspell. We will stop one person's game plan, the two other people will proceed, and now we have like two more problems. And genuinely, power creep in Commander is getting, I'm not gonna say bad, because like powerful cards can be fun, but there's so much power creep in Commander that most people are playing something that deserves to die most turns of the average bracket 3 Commander game that I've been a part of. So if it's not incredibly mana efficient and does not take care of multiple problems, I genuinely don't know how it fits in the deck. I mean, stuff like Mana Drain, yeah, hey, we finally have ramp, beautiful. Muddle the Mixture can tutor. Archmage's Charm will give you some more card advantage. But like, Rewind, I see what we're doing here, and also a lot of mana to hold up. Jari Disruption, probably not counterspelling much, is a tap land, which I know doesn't seem like much, but if you ever drew this as your 5th land drop, and then we had to wait one more turn before we could cast our commander. Okay, anyway, so like flat out counterspell, I just don't believe in it. Long River's Pull, don't believe in it. Even Narset's Reversal, barely believe in it. Almost do, because taking their spell is super juicy. Swan Song and Offer You Can't Refuse is kind of, that's meta dependent. If you want to bring this into Gen Pop, they're fine. Malakir Rebirth I worry about because it's a tap land. I know it's like recursion for your commander, but I think you are waging a war of card attrition. Either we have one of our counterspells to protect him, or we don't, and that's okay. But like drawing a tap land in this deck seems genuinely crippling. Like horrifically bad. If we draw it in on any of the pivotal turns. I'm also seeing like, this is crazy expensive stuff. I love that we have instant speed card advantage, or sorcery speed really good card advantage, but a lot of this is so expensive that we are doing Drago control, and we are choosing either I interact or I cast a card advantage spell. It's probably going to get us into trouble. It might keep us like, it might keep our hand really full, but the other thing to consider is Lord of the Nazgul cares about number of spells cast. So if we just do like quick math, if it looks like 3 is a very, very common number for your card advantage. So it's 4, but we'll work with 3. If I have to cast 9 spells, and most of the ones I draw are 3 mana, that means I have to tap 27 mana to attempt to win this game. If my spells were 2 mana, I only have to tap 18 mana. That's like 2 turns faster. If I was doing cantripping and they were 1 mana, I'm 9 mana away from winning the game. That's like High Tide in a Dream. That's Lord of the Nazgul next turn, High Tide in a Dream. And I realize that is closer to Spellslinger, but there at some point there's going to be an overlap, and I think you have veered too far in the other direction, where I would like to be able to, on an opponent's turn, cast Sheoldred's Edict and Impulse. Stuff like that. Now the problem with this is we're going to be less full-handed. We're going to have, we're not going to have like 7 cards in hand the whole game. It is going to weaken our ability to really, really oppressively push our advantage state once we're in Drago control mode. But I think that is how you get to Drago control mode. That and board wipes. What are our finishers? Glamdring, Torment of Hailfire, Rite of Replication. Oh boy, okay. We'll talk about that in a moment. Glamdring, sure. 44 instants, I believe in it. I believe in it more if we bring the cost of our average instant down. Because again, this is like, okay, I'm going to kill you in the air with my commander damage commander. How many instants do I have in the grave? 5? That's 3 swings to kill. That's just as long as the Wraith plan, if not longer. Torment of Hailfire, maybe. You're really piggybacking on the rest of the table here because you're not ramping, you're just land dropping. And so if we do this on a reasonable turn, which is like 8 to 9, we get 7 or 6 instances, which is like 18 to 21 life if they only lose the life, about half. And if they're willing to sack anything or discard anything, it's probably only like a quarter of their life. So, kind of, but it's pretty half-hearted finisher in my book. Rite of Replication, I presume you're doing this into like the Nazgul or into the race that you've made from the commander. Again, kind of, but this is a slow finisher like Glamdring, because you're going to Rite of Replication, Lord will trigger, we'll see you don't have 9 yet. Even if you kicked right, you have like 4 wraiths, you kick right. They'll see you have 4, you won't get the 9/9s, then 5 more will get put on the field, and then your next spell wins. But you've spent 9 mana, and your next spell is going to cost 3 mana, which means you're waiting until your next turn. So all of these can work as finishers, but they have some pretty significant problems. Yeah, recursion, cute as hell. Adorable. I also think these 9 wraiths are a massive problem. I know it is thematic. I'm not telling you to kill your theme. I'm just telling you that the next like 3 games where the deck doesn't work, if you have a Nazgul on your field or in your hand, you have to look at it, pet it softly, and go, it was worth it. All for you. That's who this was for. Because what these cards are taking the space of is threats and value engines. Another missing link we have is we don't have anything that can accrue meaningful value before turn 5. That's horrifying. Like, not only are we trying to 1-for-1 everybody else's 2-mana value engines, we don't have any. Like, even if we had something like Dark Confidant that we could stick on turn 2, that solves so many of our problems. We get Dark Confidant, God forbid you get Phyrexian Arena. You get something like Black Market Connections. Any of these like highly generic, get me card, get me money, get me whatever. These all matter. Oh, we do have Call of the Ring, but we have 13 creatures in the deck. So this kind of only works because we have the Nazgul. And if we draw anything but Call of the Ring and Nazgul, I think they're pretty bad. If we don't have the Nazgul, we don't have a creature to pick as our ring bearer. If we don't have the Call of the Ring, the Nazgul are like pretty weak threats until you've played very many of them. So you can keep them, but you do have to understand you're playing like 9 cards down if you keep them, because the things that would be in their place are value engines and threats that grow. These don't even have to be like insane, but it needs to be something. It needs to be something that will represent like a damage threat, something that can get you cards, even like stuff like Ledger Shredder. There's other stuff like Nadir, no, not Nadir Kraken. Chasm Skulker. You know, any of the things that say like draw cards get bigger. Those work. Ledger Shredder, that works. Anything that will, I think the tag is like gains PP counters. Yeah, gains PP counters. But any type of permanent that can sort of feed the machine before Lord of the Nazgul comes down is going to be very, very impactful. And right now, if we want to find room for those cards, it means we have to continue shaving our draw section or shave down our interaction section. Definitely shouldn't shave the few finishers we have. And so we're trying to find room for, tie this all in a bow, we're trying to find room for more board wipes. I think you can lateral some of these 1-for-1 removal options, some of these counter spells, for board wipes. They're probably going to hurt, but hold on. Set TMT color. There's one really good black one that will work for you. Oh, I think it's TMC, actually. These were in the pre-con. Not game over. Swift Demise. Deal 1 damage to target creature. Destroy each creature you don't control that was dealt damage this turn. This is potentially a sweeper for anybody who went to combat. And then if we can't get board wipes, the other things we want are more things that deal with multiple problems. Right now, I think we are too heavy into 1-for-1. We are too heavy into bounce as well. We got to swap that over to things that destroy, or if we're going to do bounce, they have to bounce multiple permanents and they have to give you a little bit of extra sauce, like Baral's Expertise or something. But even that's a very expensive spell. And then after that, I think you got to bring the average mana value down, because we're putting, like, probably on average 24 or more mana between us and victory. You don't have to go down to like Cantrip, Pilled, Spellslinger, Heaven, but you should probably try to find 2 mana options that can replace 3 mana options, or 3 mana options that can replace 4 mana options. And then last but not least, a huge thing for you would be having value engines or growing threats that you could stick on early turns, because right now they're all taken up by Nazgul. They're all, oh boy, yeah, that's rough. We can't double spell until turn 6, which is like fine, but we'd like to be able to do it turn 4. We'd like to be able to like turn, like maybe play our commander a turn later and hold up a spell, which we can almost never do because we only have 6 spells with mana value 1. It does look very cute though, and it does look like you get to draw a million cards. It looks like a fun deck, and I wish you the best of luck with it, and I hope you enjoyed.